Imagine offering the awkward person of your class a ride home because you can't bear the silence any longer. Then you walk over to your car, smash the doors locked, and goof around with your friend. Meanwhile, your dad is being taken out behind the car and you don't even notice it. Suddenly, there's a complete stranger sitting in the front seat. What do? Exactly, you kindly ask him to leave. No, you don't. What you do is punch, spit, or scratch this guy in the face and leave the car. You were 3 people. 3. I would understand to be frozen in terror as a loner, but being with 2 other more or less grown-up people, I would at least be able to move. But let's start at the beginning. Who is this guy? Well, this is Kevin. But he's not just a Kevin, he's also a Dennis, a Hedwig, Jade, Patricia, Barry, Orwell, Heinrich, Samuel, the Beast, and many more people. He has nothing to do with Harry Potter, and no, he is not Mr. Beast's cousin, okay? What he is a mental patient diagnosed with dissociative personality disorder. So you've just been kidnapped by a random pretty crazy looking guy. The good things are, you've been kidnapped with 2 other people. One of them is your friend, and you've all been placed into the same room. The bad things are, you've been kidnapped, the guy seems to be mental, and he does look like he's ripped as hell. What do? Well, a couple of things first. Being placed into the same chamber is a huge advantage. If I were to kidnap anyone, hypothetically speaking, I would never place multiple people into one room. In fact, if I only had one room available, I would kidnap only one person. So that you're 3 people together is an amazing circumstance. The most important thing, as always, is not to panic. You need a plan, and in order to think, you must be calm. First, you should get a clear picture on where you are. Check out every little corner of the room. For starters, there are 2 mattresses lying on a metal construct. There is a bathroom with a small glass vase, a sink that can be lifted off, a full functioning toilet that usually can be taken apart as well, and there is also a plastic shower curtain and lamps. There are many useful tools inside this room to fight someone. The fact that your kidnapper put you in a room filled with heavy objects is strange. Either he is dumb or he believes that an escape is impossible. This could either imply you are somewhere very secure and even getting out of this room doesn't automatically mean you are free, or it means he is underestimating you, in which case that would be a great advantage. Therefore, your job in this position is to find a way to exploit any mistakes he makes. This means you should come up with a plan ASAP. Wanting to get out of here as quickly as possible is natural, but acting in a rush on your part will mean the end for you. That he put you into the same room with 2 other people could also mean that he doesn't plan on keeping you in here for very long. This means you would do well to be quick in coming up with something that could actually work. Here's what I would do. The advantage is clearly 3 versus 1, although I wouldn't dare to take him heads on. That looks like a bad idea. He is taller, much stronger, and definitely unapologetic. We are just 3 tiny little teenage girls not knowing what is happening. If you can't win a fight with strength, you must seek a way to outsmart your opponent. That means you will need to find a way to fight with the power of surprise. What prisoners do, for example, is they attempt a suicide or great self-harm so that they are transferred into a hospital. Obviously, this is only a temporary solution, but it does buy them time. Now, of course, that doesn't necessarily work in our situation here, but what I mean is this. In a desperate situation, you must be willing to take desperate action. This inevitably means taking high risk. It is clear that you have only one shot. If you miss, it is likely to be over. I would break the tiny glass vase in a toilet silently between my bedsheet covers in a way so that I have multiple big shards left. Then I would use something to wrap around it to make it safe to hold. You can use a belt, a t-shirt, or anything else that you may find for that. These homemade knives are our melee weapons. Hide them in a way that you can quickly access them whenever necessary. Try to keep them on yourself. Next up is to check if you can get your hands on anything heavy. You would want to hit something over his head that is capable of taking him out. The most probable item that can be used for an act like this is the toilet tank cover. These are usually quite heavy yet still handy. Even a teenage girl could swing that with enough force to injure someone seriously. Another great thing would be if you were able to lift up that sink. One strike with that and you will take out a f***ing elk. But it might be a bit too heavy for that, so forget about it unless you're able to shatter it and arm yourself with potentially handy and sharp pieces of it. But you should only do that if you are sure that he has left the house, because you will make a lot of noise with this. This brings me to my next point. If you are taking the room apart to arm yourself, he will inevitably notice the changes once he enters again. That would screw everything up. That means that you should be careful and picky about the time frame in which you start carrying out your plan. Once you started making changes in the room, it must be clear that there is no way back. Once you start shattering vases and taking apart objects, you will need to carry out your plan in completion. And that is where diversion comes into play. There is no way you can take this guy heads on. It's impossible. That means somebody will need to strike from behind or the side where he isn't able to notice anything. It would be possible for one or two of you to distract him, but I wouldn't risk that. Distracting someone so another person can attack is not a very easy task to carry out. I think the safest option would be to patiently wait for the right timing to strike, other than creating an opportunity artificially, I mean. That way you have the utmost power of surprise on your side as well. Furthermore, at least one of the girls is wearing a belt. A belt is extremely durable and could be altered into a mid-range weapon, aka Gucci flail. You could do that, but I wouldn't recommend that. A sharp shard is much more powerful and can be easily hidden as well. A flail not so much, my friends, but it can still be used to cuff or choke someone efficiently. It must be clear that once someone gets an opportunity to strike, the others cannot lose any time and have to react instantly. Okay, that's all beautiful and stuff, but let's have a look on what our girls do. A few hours have passed since they have been locked into this room, and next to this guy,
I'll talk to him.
They have also been visited by her. And now this kid right here is staring crazily at us from the entrance. In some scenes that I haven't shown here, we have also seen this guy right here at the therapy session. Obviously we can see that this is the same human being over and over again, but acting out different personalities. The first thing that comes to my mind is DID, dissociative personality disorder, and this is proven once we follow the scene at the psychotherapist. He has 23 personalities, all of which have independent lives, own hobbies, and even illnesses that differ from each other, which is quite surprising. The person that has kidnapped us was Dennis, the woman in red was Patricia, and now, for the first time, we're getting to know Hedwig.
He's done awful things to people and he'll do awful things to you. I have blue socks too.
Hedwig is a 9-year-old kid. He is into Kanye West, likes to break rules, and his PP is sending out his first signals. Anyway, the point here is this. If you don't know about DID, then you must be freaked out if you were in the position of these girls. But if you do know about this mental condition, you would be quick to draw powerful conclusions. Fact is, these personalities are real. This is a real 9-year-old in front of you. It isn't just an act. Therefore, overcoming a 9-year-old versus a jacked 35-year-old, I think, is a much more achievable challenge. In this scene, Hedwig says something that is curious. He says that he will soon arrive and that all of them have been kidnapped for his sake. Now, whatever that means, but having a human with DID in front of you, it would make sense to think in terms of another, potentially much more violent personality that hasn't come out yet. But does that really matter? I mean, you've been kidnapped, right? Anything that will follow must be bad. Whether it's illegal organ trade, human trafficking, torture, etc. Nothing comes good from being kidnapped. Therefore, the reason why you got kidnapped shouldn't concern you too much. On the contrary, I think you should pour your energy into finding a way out and don't waste it with focusing on the madness that awaits you. Next to revealing that there is one evil personality coming for them, Hedwig reveals that this room has undergone special construction to keep it secret from the outside world, implying that they are located in a public area. What the girls do next is stupid, and I do not recommend it. I will follow up with a better solution on why I think this was a bad idea. After Hedwig has left, the girls pounded against the walls to check if they can find a way out. That's a great thing to do, but Jesus Christ, you don't have to hammer against that wall like that. That's like horning your car in front of a group of preschoolers crossing the street. It's unnecessary. One of the girls finds a hollow part behind the ceiling, and not 10 seconds later she hammers with her shoe against it. I mean seriously, that's like giving your enemy a call to tell him you're about to leave. The better way would have been to think what the current options are, and right now there are two. First, there seems to be a passage through the ceiling. And secondly, this guy sometimes switches into Kid mode, which would be easy to overpower and outsmart. This isn't Kid Boo or something, this is just a weird 9-year-old boy. Which of these is the better option? I think it's beating up the kid. Really, here's why. Escaping through the ceiling will be extremely noisy and time inefficient. The only way to make this work reliably would be during a time when he is out for at least 1 hour. But the problem is this, it is impossible to determine for you whether he's actually out of the building or not. Therefore, the risk involved picking this option is too unpredictable. On the other hand, if you're able to overpower him and close him into this chamber himself and then leave, it's almost a safe bet to escape. The only question is how to do that. As things turned out, sometimes this dude becomes a 9-year-old boy. Do you know how easy it is to trick a 9-year-old boy? Step 1. Remove your bra. Step 2. Throw it into his face. Done. You may still double and triple tap with a sharp shard and heavy object, just to be sure, but I mean it's quite easy to do. And then, boom, you're safe. Next thing you do is you take the time to cuff his hands behind his back, check his pockets for any keys, and then leave the room. You close the room and then get the f*** out of here. But of course our girls don't do this. Nope. Our girls rush into the first opportunity that presents itself without considering the details. Yep, that's what I meant. You escaped, but now you're on your own, you have no idea where to go, and you're chased by a fucking psychopath. In my book, that's the worst thing that can happen in your lifetime. I get heart attacks playing Pac-Man. What do you think would happen in a situation like this?
I thought I lost you.
Yep. Anyway, she gets totally locked into a separate room and will be there from here on out. Terrible for her, and not so good for the others either. The good thing is, each one is still alive. In the new room where she is locked in now, there seems to be a wide variety of items that could be used to immobilize the enemy. But looking at her behavior, it doesn't look like she's got much hope left. Screw her, let's focus on the remaining two. A few hours pass and we get to see Patricia again. The girls get their hair done and invited to have a proper meal at the kitchen table. When I was pointing out before to patiently wait for the right time to strike, I was talking about something like this right here. If there is a chance to escape, it is right now. But since they didn't create any weaponry, it makes it impossible to win against a checked male body like that. But one of the girls though grabs a chair and breaks it over his or her body. Solid move, I liked it, but Jesus Christ, you should start binging binge. A single blow is stupid, especially since there are multiple knives literally just a meter away from you. I would have smacked that bitch over the back with this chair, then grabbed this hanging knife in the background and stab her into her throat as if I were to perform a sick John Wick move. But instead of using a pen, Lord forbids, I would use some kitchenware. The one problem those girls did not overcome is being fierce. They weren't determined enough. If I were kidnapped by a sick guy, I would know that my life will be over if I don't react. And so there is either do or die. But those lame and weak ass attacks from those chicks are just terrible. Anyway, if you screwed this up right here, oh boy, you really suck. And so the next chick gets into a separate room and now our chances drop by literally 66%. That's insane. This proves that those choices they made were not just bad but downright the worst. Let's see if we can fix that. Now, from all options I have considered up until now, I am still in favor of smacking that guy as hard as possible into the face. Our main girl that has yet to try her luck wakes up and Hedwig, the 9-year-old boy, is behind her hugging her. She's making the best of it and does what a desperate teenager in this position does, seduces the boy. She ends up as his first kiss and gains his trust, which she will be able to exploit later on. We will have a look at that in a second. But look, if she had a freaking shard somewhere under her pillow, she could have stabbed that kid straight away and this story would have ended right here. So please, let's not pretend this movie is difficult to beat. It really isn't. But the one thing that these characters never did since being locked into this room was thinking. They came up with ideas, but they didn't discuss them. They were not thought through, and their attempts were half-baked at most. In the next scenes, the psychopathic kidnapper goes for another therapy session. Meanwhile, we are plotting on how to overpower that little boy when he comes back. By now, you should know how I would do it, but this is how she does it. The little guy comes in and picks her up and brings her to his room. And there, we get a nice creative art performance. Okay, I mean, that's kind of strange, but sweet at the same time, to be honest. If I were in this position, I would be falling for this kid. I would probably become his friend and just stay down there, whatever. But I think even for the sake of his future, hitting him over the head with the lamp behind the door is the best option here. In the following scenes, Dennis takes over the body and attacks her. She is sent back to her room and then he reveals what will happen later that night.
The beast is a sentient creature.
I think at this point it becomes increasingly helpless to save the situation.
Who represents the highest form of human's evolution.
If you are not willing to go great length, aka try to kill him, you will not see the light anymore. If you can't make the decision to murder someone in order to save your own ass, then in this position the only thing that would be able to save you would be a random investigation performed by third parties around you. Will that happen? Probably not, but what does happen is Dennis gets surprised by his therapist who comes by for a visit. I think this woman, albeit a well-experienced therapist, is very brave and probably a bit stupid. To enter just like that into one of her patients' homes it's kind of daring. Before doing that, she should have called the police to set up a rescue mission in case she won't be sending out any signals after 2 hours or so. In any way, when she's sitting at the kitchen table with Dennis, she feels that something seems to be off. She decides to leave, but for some dumb and unexplainable reason, she has to stick her nose where it doesn't belong. Why would you even do that? You're an 80-year-old unarmed woman that told nobody anything about where she went to. This is beyond me. I can't comprehend what the hell is happening right here. As a doctor, she could have convinced the police investigation quicker than anyone else. She literally had the right set of cards here, but she went all in and lost gambling with the lives of 3 girls and her own. Thanks, Granny, but not really. Next up, Dennis will eventually become the Beast. At the same time, the girls are trying to escape, but we know how that will turn out, right? Eventually, the Beast arrives back at the house and attacks the therapist. She has no chance to survive, but is able to scribble down something on a white piece of paper. There was one thing that I haven't touched on ever since I have started writing this script. Since this guy is a mental patient, he must be emotionally unstable, meaning there must be certain triggers that cause him great suffering or even make him lose consciousness temporarily. However, in the position of a kidnapped victim, I doubt you will be able to find the keys for such triggers. But hey, perhaps you will find a way to do so. Anyways, at the same time, one of the girls actually made it out of her chamber by using a tiny little nail that she had found on the floor. Of course. But eventually was stuck in another blocked room from where she couldn't escape. Honestly though, this room is so full of stuff, I would be hard pressed to believe that there isn't anything that could be used as a lever to break through that door. But it doesn't really matter, does it? Because what is better than escaping a mental patient's grip? Exactly, watching his video diaries.
With regard to Jahamana's defeat and Muhammad Ghor's conquest between 1192 and 12.
But as luck would have it, she found out where the keys are. And so she locks open the door, walks down the corridor, and finds her friend dead on the floor, acting as fresh meat for the Beast. When she escapes, she finds the note of the therapist on which she reads Kevin Randall Crumb, which seems to be his real name. And once she read it, this happens. Okay, this gets stranger by the minute, but I promise if you watch the movie, which you should, this scene makes more sense than when watching my video. Anyway, through screaming his real name, she triggers a change and wakes up the real Kevin that has been unconscious for over 2 years at that moment. He had no idea what was going on, but told her where she could find a shotgun and ammunition so she can kill him and finally release him from his misery. And so we get another last nerve-wracking Pac-Man chase, and in the end, well, she survives. Not because she can kill him, but because he realizes that she too is a victim of her past and therefore similar to him. What a nice happy ending. If you haven't watched that movie, I sincerely recommend it. The acting was amazing and the overall plot was more than worthy. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys later.